Yeah, hi guys. A night after the Dutch Grand Prix. It's been a very interesting Dutch GP, and I think everybody would have enjoyed it. The drama, the weather, the consistencies for some teams, and the inconsistencies for some teams, the adrenaline. The midfield battle was intense. That is the major battle on this corner. It is very, very interesting. And we saw Ferrari coming back with their whole shenanigans. Now, for me, I think it is telling that Ferrari might not just drop down the table. Lewis Hamilton is dropped down from second to third now, presently. It might drop to fourth, fifth, and Charles Leclerc to drop off the table if Ferrari keeps going in this direction. And it will be very, very interesting to see what comes of them. And this might just give Mercedes and Kimi Antonelli easy way and also give McLaren a way back. Probably even give the Red Bull Max Verstappen a way back. In the last race, I said it. Now, Ferrari should start seeing that their yansh is coming outside. The wind or the breeze has blown, and the yansh of the foul is totally out. I don't know what Ferrari are thinking, but we'll talk about it later. Great race for Lando Norris, starting from pole. He was able to hold it on the second start, he was unable to do that, but McLaren did a beautiful strategy plan. And I think McLaren were able to do that because they only have Lando Norris to deal with, not Oscar Piastri. Common sense. And if you look at yesterday's race, Mercedes really helped Kimi Antonelli because Mercedes now know what is at stake. There's a difference between, oh, what are we chasing? Who are we chasing? And who are we really racing? George Russell does not have the speed yesterday. Kimi Antonelli has the momentum. They gave it to him. There was a time in which George Russell was backing off everybody for opportunity for Kimi Antonelli to get it. That was it. But let's go to the beginning of the race. What happened at the beginning of the race? We had Max Verstappen coming off and stringing his car into the wall. Now, let me explain. Some part of the track was wet. There was rain after the W Series, serious rain, and the track was drying off when they started the race. So the sector 3 was still really wet. Part of sector 1 to sector 2 was dry, but sector 3 to the first part of sector 1 still has wet patches. So the race started. Common sense, everybody needs to start the race on slick. You can't start such race on wet or inters because you'll be losing time. And at that point, you don't need inter tires to be drying off the track. All you need is your slick tires. Get it into it, it dries it off. That's all you need. On the first lap, Max Verstappen took a tighter line, rubbed some part of the tire on the grass, and spun into the wall. And I think he was trying to do that to take a tighter part so that he can close in on Lewis Hamilton before the end of first sector, because they know they have raw speed on the car. So you have a raw speed on the engine. All you need is take tighter lines, close in on the person ahead of you, and voila, you have the opportunity to overtake, which he was trying to do, which is a very, very interesting or tight understanding in the move. So no wahala, is just easy to say. But unfortunately, he got it wrong. He got it totally wrong. And how did he get it wrong? He got in tighter, clipped some part of the grass, and he lost control of the car. Thank God he didn't catch his present teammate, Liam Lawson. That have been a disaster for Liam Lawson too. But he didn't catch him, and that was it. The car was unsavable. We had the first red flag of the race. Everybody went back to the pit. While in the pit, some people changed their tires, while some did not change. Lewis Hamilton changed to a new soft. He was using an old soft, had 3 laps on it, changed it to another soft so that it can cool down, open before the end of the race. They will get to use soft again. To start the race, Lewis Hamilton and his teammate Charles Leclerc went on soft because they were trying to get track position. And they know that if they are ahead, they can cool off. The weather is damp, so you don't have to go through graining so much. Lewis Hamilton could have done, or Charles Leclerc could have done 40 laps on that soft tire, I think, because when Lewis Hamilton was on his soft tire and he was leading, he didn't want to box. He said the tires feel great, and if tires feel great, which means the cycle of heat, the tire is balanced and it still has life on the tire. The tire is not eking off, which makes sense for him. They went back to the track on some change on soft tires. That was the 2 Ferrari, while Oscar Piastri went to the hard. Some other drivers went on mediums, like that. Most people changed. So we had the first DNF of the race through Max Verstappen. On the second start, Oliver Biermann could not start. He had issues. He had to be reeled away. So we had another start there. And that was when the race really started. Kimi Antonelli was good on his start. He was able to jump Lando Norris and he maintained first position and he was really aggressive. Kimi Antonelli is very aggressive. So also Charles Leclerc, very aggressive all through the weekend. Charles Leclerc has been very aggressive for some time and I think that will not help Ferrari or help them to win a championship. Sincerely, Kimi Antonelli being aggressive he's young. He has nothing to lose. Even if he does not win this championship, he still has a whole lot of years ahead of him to win another championship. So him being aggressive means he has to see what he can do. Well, being aggressive for Charles Leclerc should be strategic for his team to win races. If they are not strategic, in which I can see that Ferrari are not strategic, they are running blindly and they are going to destroy their own race. For Mercedes, I think they have a strategy already, knowing if one driver is leading, they need to support the driver. If he has a faster car or more advantage, which helped Mercedes yesterday, that was the only saving grace for Mercedes yesterday. And with that, they were able to garner great points. But for Ferrari, no strategic balance for them. For McLaren, I think Lando Norris understanding the kind of car he has, the kind of pace he has, he stayed behind Kimi Antonelli on a track that is very difficult to overtake. He maintained track position. It was close to him. When he needs to cool off his tires, he cools it off. He stayed close so that if there is an undercut, he can take advantage, which he did. Perfect race for them. They were able to maximize an opportunity to get George Russell in the front, and Lando Norris had the opportunity to overtake George Russell, and that was it. And what did Mercedes do? They had the opportunity for Kimi Antonelli to close it in. He closed in. George Russell gave Kimi Antonelli's teammate an opportunity to chase after Norris, but at that point in time, they've lost it. He was closely matching Lando Norris's pace, but he cannot get close to Lando Norris. Now, he was able to match his pace. Why? Because though he has stressed his tire trying to overtake and trying to eke out time, but the tire life was almost the same comparing, and Lando Norris was in the clean. It was just clean out there, no mistakes. He himself clean out there, no mistake. He was matching the pace, but he could not get close, as in to reduce the deficit on time. While his teammate George Russell was able to hold the line. Why? Because Ferrari had a rough gamble. What was the gamble? When Esteban Ocon had his DNF, at that point, Lewis Hamilton could have been pitted because he was leading the race. So if Lewis Hamilton had been pitted, he would come out second. And coming out second means getting close to Lando Norris. Now we will see the true pace of what they were able to do. But they allowed Lewis Hamilton to go one more lap, then double stacked, which I think was as a result of Charles Leclerc's garage. And Charles Leclerc also was complaining on the radio that he wants to pit when Lewis Hamilton is pitting. It doesn't make sense. Now, when they were pitting on the second round, they were unable to get close. They were really behind. They were now chasing themselves. There was a part in the race from the second start, after the first stint of pit stop, Lewis Hamilton had a faster car. He was racing his teammate. They were on different strategies at this point in time. The two Ferraris were on different strategies. Charles Leclerc was not giving him an opportunity to overtake so that he can gain momentum. Meanwhile, it's not going to affect Charles Leclerc's race. Common sense. Charles Leclerc refused to allow him go. So they were racing themselves, eking out time, taking time and giving advantage to those that were ahead of them. Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, no sense. Seriously, is no sense, because this is about 40 something laps to go. You are racing your teammate, you are both destroying your tires while giving the person ahead of you time to move and also giving the person behind time to close in. It's not making sense. I think Fred Vasseur and the Ferrari team need to sit down at this point and know what their chances are. Charles Leclerc trying to close in on Lewis Hamilton on the table, meanwhile destroying his own race and destroying Lewis Hamilton's race, which in any way brings them down the championship order and gives other teams chances to close in on them. Now, they will be losing both on constructors and drivers' championship. Let me give you an example of how it happens yesterday. When Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton were racing against themselves and they were happy, they were like, it's race. They were giving George Russell time to escape, Kimi Antonelli time to escape, while they were giving Oscar Piastri time to close in on them. Now, after closing in, Charles Leclerc now went to pit when he had suffered his teammate's tire, which is not making sense. You suffered your teammate's tire, now you left him in the open to go. He has wasted a lot of rubber racing you, like 3 or 4 laps rubber racing you. That doesn't make sense. That is not racing. That is pure waste of time on both garages, which I think the team could have looked into or would have looked into and corrected. But still they didn't. Yeah, I knew they spoke to Charles Leclerc about it. He refused. But I'm hoping in future, Lewis Hamilton will have the same opportunity. Charles Leclerc will have the same opportunity and Lewis Hamilton will refuse. Because it has happened this year in which Lewis Hamilton had given Charles Leclerc an opportunity when he knew that he was not having a fast car. We saw that a lot last year. If Charles Leclerc is the prince of Ferrari, he should let everybody know. Because now I think Ferrari should focus on who is leading in the championship, how they can win. If they had pitted Lewis Hamilton right when Ocon had his issues, he would have come out second. He was leading the race, he would come out second. It was just a virtual safety car, not a full safety car. Now he can chase after Lando Norris, and they probably could have won the race or come in second position, which gives them maximum points rather than coming fourth. Imagine. It's common sense. So at that point, Charles Leclerc will be chasing after George Russell, which at the end of the day might get fourth position, which could have given them second and fourth or first and fourth yesterday, which gives them more points in the championship. Common sense, and also more points in the Constructors' Championship as a team, which Ferrari are not seeing. Now, Lewis Hamilton blocked Charles Leclerc all through to make sure he comes fourth. Charles Leclerc was complaining on the radio. They had to stop him on the radio. And it was like Lewis Hamilton blocked him in some way. Why would he give you a space to go ahead of him? When is it that he cannot hold to the fourth position? You refuse to cooperate with the team. You can't expect him to cooperate with the team, because if this keeps going and Lewis Hamilton goes into his Lewis Hamilton's mode, I think Charles Leclerc will be the person that will hate it most, because it will not just deprive Ferrari of opportunity of coming either first, second in the championship. It will deprive the team of winning any reasonable team this season as a team, because with McLaren on the rise, it's going to be difficult. McLaren on the rise, chasing after both Ferrari and Mercedes, which means Ferrari, if they are not strategic, they will lose more points and they will lose more opportunity. So Mercedes losing points will give McLaren more opportunity to gain, which means McLaren might come second in the Constructors' Championship or even come first in Constructors' Championship, which Mercedes might still take the Drivers' Championship easy. Instead of Ferrari giving Lewis Hamilton the chance to eke out time, take out time. Imagine Lewis Hamilton coming second yesterday. He has taken like 7 points away from Kimi Antonelli's championship points, which means with every race, if they can be eking out time, they gain. Ferrari gains, which McLaren, they did yesterday. They knew Oscar Piastri was not having a race car. Oscar Piastri was running his own race. Everywhere they see they can help Lando Norris, they were helping him. But Ferrari, everywhere they see they can help Lewis, they were not helping him. Rather, they were giving heirs to Charles Leclerc. And at the end of the day, they were destroying their own opportunity to climb both Constructors' Championship and Drivers' Championship. Now, at the end of the race yesterday, Lando Norris came ahead of Charles Leclerc. Imagine Charles Leclerc coming fourth yesterday or coming third yesterday, which means if he comes third or fourth yesterday and Lewis Hamilton was able to come second or win the race, Lando Norris will still be behind Charles Leclerc. Train of thought, common sense. But they didn't see that. They only saw destroying their own race, trying to please mama's boy. For me, I would just say Lewis Hamilton too should go berserk mode. Let's both go. Nobody helps each other. Everybody goes their own way, drive their own, and let's see what happens, because this is becoming much more unfair from Charles Leclerc's side of the garage, which doesn't make sense. Seriously, it doesn't make sense. I've seen it in races, and you would know when Lewis Hamilton has had the opportunity to go ahead of Charles Leclerc, he's done it this season. Charles Leclerc was so racy at the beginning of the first stint. He nearly caused the first collision before lap 1 in this race in Dutch. I'm not blaming him. I just think greed and that kind of desperation destroys the team. Mercedes has had it before. They don't want to have it again. That was why Mercedes played the game they played yesterday. George, let Kimi Antonelli go ahead of you. Why? Because he is leading the championship. Any little point we can eke, if they knew that he may not be able to catch Lando Norris, but any point we can eke, gain against Lewis Hamilton now and against Lando Norris or any other person in future, so that we can still win one or the 2 championships. That is just pure class from Mercedes, which you are not seeing the same class from Ferrari. And this same thing happened last year with McLaren. They nearly lost the whole race. Well, I've talked about them a lot. Let me keep quiet. Liam Lawson, great race yesterday. He had 10-second penalty, but that didn't really affect his race. Why? Because VSC infringement. Oscar Piastri, great race. He does not have a car that had the pace. It was just a race for him. Nico Hülkenberg, perfect race for himself and Fernando Alonso. Fernando Alonso, 2 points. Now, the 3 points that Aston Martin are having this season was single-handedly garnered by Fernando Alonso in the last 2 races. Just a simple upgrade that they had, and they've pushed themselves. And at the end of the day, they got points from the RBs. Yuki Tsunoda drove a beautiful race yesterday, been out for Formula 1 for over a year, and coming in, going ahead of his teammate David Lindbergh in a car that he has not driven before. He Yeah, he has not driven that car on the track. He might have in the simulator, but he did a great race yesterday. The sprint race was good for him. The first time driving a long race in the car. Now driving it longer, it was just a beautiful one for him yesterday. And the battle between Pierre Gasly, Fernando Alonso, Nico Hulkenberg, Yuki Tsunoda, Gabi Bortoleto, Colapinto, Carlos Sainz was massive. As in, we saw massive battle, and these guys were battling themselves as if their life depends on it. Now, the top teams, they were finding it difficult to overtake, but those guys behind, they find it so easy. Overtaking are water for them. As in, they see overtaking as easy. They were racing themselves closely. For in 3 10s, they were racing against themselves. Hard racing at the midfield yesterday was crazy. And I think if we have such races at the top, in which you have the top teams racing closely against themselves, it will be very interesting. Very interesting. But some teams don't want us to see it. They only want us to see their mistakes. Mistakes. Well, it was a close, hard, funny racing yesterday, and I think we will see that probably in Monza in 2 weeks' time, because Ferrari will be bringing their hardware, which brings them closer again. They'll be having 3 practices in Monza, which makes sense. And let's see what the teams can do with speed. I think what Charles Leclerc is fighting for is to beat Lewis Hamilton this season, which common sense should say no. It should tell you it's all about the team winning, not beating another your drivers. And what is the main aim? Because the media will say, oh, you are able to beat him, he's old, he's washed. To me, it should be much about how the team wins consistently, especially with the opportunity they have. Now, if they're bringing Ado and they will be much more faster, they need to use it. They need to have a plan. They need to have common sense to race the remaining races this season so that they can gain more points. If Ferrari keep going like this, it's going to be total washout. They will lose totally in the Constructors' Championship and in the Drivers' Championship. And George Russell is ahead of Lewis Hamilton now, or probably they're on the same point. Charles Leclerc is gone down table. McLaren has closed up. So what are they going to do to make a difference? Now it's left for Ferrari to start thinking. It's left for Fred Vasseur to understand what they really need to do, what they really want in the team. If they don't do that, I think they are going to bring this team to a total grind and a total halt and destroy their chances this season. And to Pierre Gasly, great race, was able, after every overtaking, everything, every mistakes he made yesterday, every good opportunity he had yesterday, he came home with 1 point. Yuki Tsunoda 11th, Avril Lindblad, great racing, Gabi Bortoleto, a wobbly spin, and that didn't really help him, but great race, great race. And Colapinto 2 laps behind, Perez 2 laps, Williams, Carlos Sainz 2 laps, Albon, great race, but at the end of the day, he had the DNF, Valtteri Bottas DNF. Cadillac has had more DNFs this season than most teams, and I think they need to work on that. They've brought in a new team principal. These are things they need to work on to make this season a beautiful season for them. And I think looking into the next race to be a good one, very interesting one I'm expecting, because that Dutch Grand Prix yesterday, you don't want to miss it. You dare not sleep. It was one of the most interesting races in the last 3-4 years, I can tell you. So up until Monza, I love you guys. Bye. Cheers.